Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. You are watching the Paris Fintech Forum Community video interview series. I'm Elliott Gotkine, and today I'm joined by the Chief Operating Officer for Financial Services at Sopra Steria, Mung Ki. Great to have you with us.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Lovely. Okay, so before we get cracking, we are going to learn a little bit more about Sopra Steria. So, Mung Ki, when it comes to financial services, because obviously that's what we're here to talk about, tell us exactly what Sopra Steria does.
Well, first of all, Sopra Steria is one of the largest IT service providers in Europe. We are more than 50,000 people, and in 2025, we did 5.6 billion euros of revenues. Financial services is one of the sectors where we are the most active. Financial services, meaning banks and insurance companies, represents more than 20% of our business. And so we help banks and insurance companies with everything regarding their transformations, their IT systems. We provide consulting and IT services.
Okay. And I mean, I know you're publicly traded, obviously, so you're not going to reveal any secrets that you haven't told the market already. But can you give us a sense of how business is shaping up for 2026?
Well, we are very active in payments, for example, supporting the bank's payment systems, and there is a lot of innovation in this space, with the arrival, for example, of new payment systems based on instant payment. And so we continue to support the banks in the transformation of their business.
Okay, and I mean, obviously, there are a number of consultancies that do similar work, the likes of Capgemini, Accenture, and others. I mean, how would you differentiate Sopra Steria from other big consultancies like those?
We are a full service company, and I think that one key differentiator is that we are very European. We do less than 5% of our business outside of Europe. And we support European banks with European staff. And so that's a very, very distinct feature of the company.
Okay. And of course, you are French as well, and very proud to be so, I would imagine. But I mean, look, globally speaking, whether you're focused on Europe or anywhere else in the world, of course, it's impossible to ignore what's been going on this year so far in Iran. For many, it's kind of clouded the economic outlook. We've seen the IMF and others, I think, downgrading their forecasts for economic growth. How is Sopra Steria dealing with the fallout? Is it more a question of wait and see? I'm going to ask you about how it's affecting your clients a bit later on.
We're lucky to operate in sectors which are very resilient. And so beyond financial services, we are very strong in the public sector, in the aeronautics industry. And therefore, all of these sectors continue to grow and continue to have a lot of activity. And I would say so far, of course, the economic context is complicated, but I would say, in this sea of complexity, we are, quite resilient.
Okay, well, I guess we'll see. Obviously, public sectors and government coffers might be affected as well. But I mean, just moving on. I mean, last year you launched, I think, Sopra Crypto Solutions, which is a white label platform for banks to offer crypto asset services. How's take up been?
Well, we launched we launched this solution to help the banks offer crypto accounts to their customers. What I think that everybody can observe is that crypto adoption is rising. In Europe, it's estimated between 13 to 20%. That's already more in some markets than the proportion of the population which owns shares. So this is a phenomenon which is clearly now too big to ignore. And when we look at the market, all of the digital banks now offer the ability for their customers to buy, hold, and sell cryptocurrencies. And we are starting to see established banks propose in similar services as well. And so what we wanted to do was to provide a technology solution to accelerate the deployment of such services with our customers.
Okay. All right, so we've heard a bit about Sopra Steria. Let's now get to know Mung Ki a little bit better. So tell us a bit more about yourself. I mean, how did you wind up at Sopra Steria?
Well, it was a natural evolution. So I trained as a maths and computer science engineer. I graduated back in 1995. I've had a very international career, 5 years in the UK and 7 years in the US. I started working in the telecoms industry for the first 7 years. Then I worked 15 years in payments, so quite a considerable amount of time. And since 2017, in digital banking. And so now at Sopra Steria, I'm continue to work on innovation and digital technologies for the financial services sector. So it's a very natural progression.
Right, and as we mentioned earlier, quite a lot of how should we put it, uncertainty out there in the world right now. Everything from geopolitical tensions to potential economic or energy crises to cybersecurity and AI, decimating humanity. I mean, what keeps you awake at night, and what makes you leap out of bed ready to seize the day each morning?
Well, what really motivates me is to work on new things, innovations. And what is super exciting in our space is that we continue to see a lot of innovation. And particularly when you look at the new technologies, I think that there are 3 major waves, which some of which have already started and the others are coming. The first wave is obviously artificial intelligence. The second is really blockchain. We've talked about the crypto platform already, but blockchain is not limited to just cryptocurrencies. And then there's another wave which is coming, which is really quantum computing. That's not, of course, everything that is going on, but if we look at those 3 big waves, I think that there's plenty of things for us to think and work about.
And those equally keep you up at night and help you get up in the morning ready to seize the day, I imagine. Both
Correct,
excitement
yes.
and concerns about what might happen. But look, I mean, outside of work, I mean, I guess you have a life. I mean, what does Mung Ki get up to when he's not working at Sopra Steria?
Well, I do normal stuff like, cinema and so on and so forth. But what also excites me is that I teach, and I've been teaching now for several years. I'm fortunate to be teaching at ESSEC, which is one of the best business schools in France, with offices in Paris and in the Paris area. And I teach about the digital transformation of companies.
Okay. So, Mung Ki, a key part of this interview is to get your take on the future of finance. But first, we are going to take a very quick break, after which we are going to continue our conversation with the Chief Operating Officer for Financial Services at Sopra Steria, Mung Ki Wu. Welcome back, and don't forget, if you're not already a full member of our community, everything you need to join can be found at www.parisfintechforum.com. Okay, so now, Mung Ki, let's talk about the future of finance. So, look, I asked you earlier about how Sopra Steria was positioning itself in the face of the fallout from the war in Iran. I now want to ask you a bit about your clients, because I guess they're very much at the coalface and how they're dealing with it. I mean, we've seen the likes of Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan raking in huge revenues from their trading arms, but not all financial institutions, especially European ones, have that to fall back on. So how are your clients, those in financial services, how are they positioning themselves for any fallout from what's happening over in the Middle East?
If you look at what is happening, there's obviously what is happening in the Middle East is having an impact on energy and inflation. It's not directly affecting the banks and insurance companies. So I think that the consequences are going to be more visible in the coming months. I don't think that they can be seen immediately. And a lot will also depend on the duration of the conflict. So I think that it's a little bit too early to say.
Okay, so I guess wait and see for now. Let's turn to slightly less controversial issues like the impact of artificial intelligence, although of course it does have its controversies. So first up, I want to ask you about this. So in early April, Anthropic said that it created a new frontier model dubbed Mythos that was so powerful it could find and exploit major software vulnerabilities in every major operating system and browser. How big a worry is something like that for financial services firms and for fintechs?
I think that AI indeed is super transformative. Mythos is just one of the things happening in the space, and it's evolving extremely fast. So as you can imagine, a company such as Sopra Steria, we are keeping very close to all of the latest developments. And we're looking at all of these new technologies, both as opportunities, but also new risks. I agree, they create new risks, and we have to immediately find work on potential solutions. But let's also look at the positive side. The positive side is that we are going to have some productivity gains, and we're also going to have new services to consumers.
And I mean, obviously there is much positive, expectation and hope for this new technology. But I mean, if I stick to the negative or the scary for now, I mean, what is scarier? That AI, perhaps from a rogue state, could render cyber defenses at financial services firms obsolete, or that quantum computing will? There seem to be concerns, coming from all angles.
Well, clearly, cybersecurity threats are increasing. And at Sopra Steria, we are one of the leaders in Europe around cybersecurity. And so we support our customers in facing those additional threats. There are also some new regulations which create additional requirements on the banks and insurance companies, like DORA, the Digital Operational Resilience Act. In addition to this, if we look at quantum computing, something that we all need to prepare for is when quantum computers will become sufficiently powerful, they will be able to break most of the existing cryptographic systems. And so what we don't know exactly when this could be possible. And so what we advise our customers to do is to start laying out a plan for migrating towards cryptographic algorithms which will be quantum resistant. So this is something that we have already worked on, we've invested on this space, and so we are discussing with our customers around preparing for this new quantum threat.
Right, and just as you help customers and fintechs and financial services firms need to prepare for these challenges and these new opportunities, I would imagine that software as a service platforms, which early this year took a bit of a beating on the markets for fear that AI was effectively going to eat their lunch. I would imagine that consultancies such as yours are also helping financial services firms kind of prepare or look at other opportunities in this field to perhaps bring more of this kind of thing in house, maybe.
Not necessarily bring things in house, but indeed we may see adjustments in the utilization of some existing pieces of software. At the same time, we have transactional systems which are not going to change overnight. The banking systems are really based on existing infrastructure, which has been in place for quite some time. And so if there are evolutions, those evolutions are likely going to be taking some time.
Okay. And, on a positive note, Mistral, French AI company, seems to be flying the flag for AI in Europe. How are French financial institutions and fintechs faring in terms of AI adoption? Would you say that they are early adopters? Are they falling behind? Are they more or less where they should be?
I think that the market is moving very fast, and nobody's wasting time. I don't think that anybody is saying, wow, I should be waiting. And I think that a key complexity is that the space is evolving extremely fast. And so by the time, so you pilot something, by the time you have finished the pilot, the technology has already evolved. And, what do you do? Do you deploy the old version? Do you deploy the new version? But the new version you haven't really piloted so far. And so, this game of catching up with what the market is doing is, I think, one of the complexities in large-scale deployments.
Okay. And now moving on to another subject that we've touched upon already, which is also one of the big trends we've seen over the last year or two is, of course, the expansion and adoption and use of stablecoins. And allied to that are concerns about currency sovereignty, especially in Europe, and especially among central bankers. What can countries do about currency sovereignty? What should they do about it?
The stablecoin question is really a question around market forces. Okay. If you look at the existing stablecoin market, most of the stablecoin transactions are done for crypto trading. Crypto trading is developing, and the question is becoming, how can we convince market players to use stablecoins which are not necessarily denominated in US dollar at those crypto trading places? There are other use cases which are taking off, and those other use cases relate to cross-border transactions. And so as the market develops, maybe we're going to see a rebalancing of different types of currencies.
Okay. And I mean, how can, I suppose the obvious question is, do you expect stablecoins to replace SWIFT, for example, at some point in the future? And if so, when?
Historically, every time a new payment instrument has been introduced, it has never replaced the existing payment instruments. Maybe there's going to be some volumes which are going to migrate, and also what we can count on is growing volumes. So the market is going to grow, the pie is going to get bigger, and the way that the pie is going to be partitioned between the different types of instruments is probably going to evolve. I think, again, it's a little bit too early to tell.
Okay. I want to turn to your digital banking experience report. Now, I understand that there isn't going to be one in 2026, so we'll refer to the one that came out in 2025. I think one of the things you noted was that digital wallets hit something like 87%, almost 90% adoption in places like Germany. What does that mean for the future of physical banking? Can I call it that? Maybe branches are really kind of finally on their way out? Or what does it mean for the future of banking that so many people, almost everyone now in certain places, are using digital wallets?
Indeed, what we are seeing is that the number of interactions which are taking place over digital channels is increasing relative to interactions which are taking place at the physical branches. I think that some transactions, for example, getting a loan or something, they will continue. Consumers will continue to use branches. I think that what is super interesting is also the fact that this digital wallet space is expanding with new services, like, for example, the new payment systems built upon instant payment rails, like Wero in France and Germany, Bizum in Spain. This is a brand new development. We are going to see also new types of digital wallets arriving in the future, in particular with digital identity. You are obviously familiar with the EI-2 regulation, which has been put in place in Europe. And by this regulation, all of the citizens in Europe will be given the opportunity to get new digital identities, hopefully by the end of this year. And those digital wallets will be accepted next year by all of the private sector operators. And so this is going to create another type of wallet. So the space of digital services, digital wallets continues to expand.
Okay, well, we look forward to all getting our new digital identities. What could possibly go wrong? But look, I think it's time now for our round of rapid-fire questions, Mung Ki. Are you ready?
Yes.
So look, I'm not checking my messages. I'm just actually putting 1 minute and 90 seconds on my clock. We're going to get through as many of these questions as possible. Just one-word answers is all I'm after. I'll start the clock and we'll get through as many of them as we can. Okay. Away we go. What fintech segment, in your opinion, has the biggest potential over the next 5 years?
Agentic commerce.
What is the biggest pain point in your everyday financial life that you would like to see resolved?
None comes to mind.
Okay. Are bank bosses ready for the AI revolution?
Yes.
Are customers ready for the AI revolution?
Yes.
Have regulators in Europe and the US kept pace with all the new possibilities and behaviors we're seeing in the financial industry?
I would say yes.
Have you ever personally invested in crypto?
Yes.
Are physical points of sales part of the future of finance?
Yes.
Are bank branches part of the future of finance?
Yes.
On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 the most likely, 1 the least likely, so just give me a number as an answer, how would you rate the chances that in the next 10 years, one of the neobanks will be as profitable as a top-tier legacy bank out of 10?
I would say 7.
That central bank digital currencies, CBDCs, will become a mainstream reality in America or Europe?
I would say 7.
That you'll be able to open a crypto account at a top-tier bank?
I would say 8.
That SWIFT will still be the main tool for transferring money around the world?
8.
And that a new card or non-card-based rival would emerge to challenge Visa or MasterCard? We can just finish that answer. Out of 10?
I would say 3.
3. Okay, so good news for Visa and MasterCard, but I am afraid that's all we've got time for our round of rapid-fire questions and for our conversation. So I just want to thank you, Mung Ki Wu, Chief Operating Officer for Financial Services at Sopra Steria, for joining me today. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And for everyone watching, we will be back again next time with another big name from the world of finance and technology. We do hope you'll be able to join us again then. In the meantime, don't forget to subscribe to the Paris Fintech Forum YouTube channel and to follow us on X at Paris Fin Forum. That's all for now. See you next time. Bye-bye.